Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cutting Through. It's a warm evening in Bombay, though it looks like it's going to come down with a shower. And we're going to be talking to Bijal this evening on food books for children, and Bijal has joined in. So I'm just going to get her on. Hey, Bij, how are you doing?
Hey Antoine, I'm good there. How about you?
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
No.
Hello? Okay. I'm just wondering if my Hello? Give me a second. I'm going to go get my headphones. All right. Don't know how to put my phone if I have a headphone on, but we'll try. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, faintly. Can you turn up the volume or something?
I don't know how to place this then. Sorry. Yeah. Is this better?
No, very faint.
Hello? Hello?
Okay, can you all hear her? Can you all hear Bija? Let me just try and see, maybe without my voice. Okay, how about that?
Padmani is saying she can hear.
Sorry?
Padmani is saying she can hear. Can you hear me better now, Antoine?
No, I can't, but okay, let me just put my earphones back and see. Yeah. Okay, can you hear me, Bij?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah, okay, I can hear you as well. Great, that's perfect. Okay, good. Okay, so we've got Bijal Vacharajani with us. And Bijal and I worked together at Time Out, where she was the kids editor, and then she took over as the Around Town editor. And she later went on to be the editor of Time Out Bengaluru. She has written 4 children's books, and she calls herself writer, editor, scissors hands, and what was the third thing?
Climate warrior.
Climate warrior. So yeah, so children's books, climate issues, these are all Bijal's primary interests. So today we're going to be talking about how Pratham, the organization that she works with and where she's senior editor, has actually come up with a number of food books, and how there is a paucity of Indian food books in the market. So, Bij, what's your take on it, and why is there such a dearth of this genre of books?
Um, so, I was thinking about this question for a while because a while ago I had done this article on where are the farmers in our story. And now I'm wondering where is the food in our stories as well. I think what happens is that broadly for the audience, that's not a children's book audience here. Children's books can be divided into 3 categories roughly. So first there is the picture book, which means that these are books for early readers, for toddlers and children who are just beginning to read. Once they
Right.
become fluent readers and they're older, so when they become tweens, they move to middle grade books. So they're reading books that are chapter books that have a lot more text. And then they get older and then they read young adult fiction and other adult grown-up fiction and things like that.
Right.
What I realized when I was combing through my many bookshelves is that there's a lot of there's a lot of food in picture books, and
Okay.
and I was trying to categorize why. One is that I think that food is one of the primary ways that a child interacts with the world. So
Okay.
basically, they are exploring new tastes, they're exploring new textures, they're exploring new foods when they're growing up, right? And those are really
Yeah.
foundational years where you get to, as a child, you get to say, I don't like Karela, or very strangely, like my nephew grew up eating Loki and he loves it. None of us can
Okay.
understand it, but he loves it. So these childhood years are very key in and foundational in deciding what your future food habits will be like. So a lot of the books that we see in picture books, for instance, are about food nutrition, about education, introduction to food. I'm guilty of the same. So let me start by saying that. And it's all Yamini Vijayan's fault if she's online. It's because she asked me to write this book. It's illustrated by
Okay.
Priya Kurian and art directed by Vinayak Verma. And it's about this little girl who loves to eat. And she
Okay.
eats with the seasons.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah. So we see a bunch of these kind of books at that age group. I'm trying to find, just so you know, there's a stack of children's books like Higgledy Piggledy lying over here. We have
Okay.
this little flash story card, which is about
Yeah.
the rainbow. And
Okay.
it's also the story of Sambar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Mathangi Subramaniam wrote it, and it was illustrated by Antara Khurana. And Pati and Bhavya makes rainbow sambar. So there's violet sambar onions and plump indigo brinjals. And so it's like this two-way tool of saying, here you learn your colors, you meet a
Huh.
grandmother, and you learn about a dish that's very, very Indian. The other thing, I think that as children grow up, food starts getting depicted as something as comfort, as camaraderie. So you'll see a lot
Oh,
more books like, like how we read Enid Blyton and Mallory Towers, they
yeah,
would all
yeah,
have these midnight feasts. Harry Potter,
yeah, yeah.
that great hall table, all of them sitting together and eating. Or a dinner time conversation between a family. It can say so much as a narrative plot. And so a lot of writers end up using that then in children's books. Um, it's also punishment. Like Harry was deprived of good food, for instance, in Harry Potter. So
Yeah.
food's a great way of punishing your characters. And
Yeah, yeah.
the last, I think that I thought is very, very key to what we grew up with, and again, that goes back to the early years of reading, is food as imagination. So you've just learned about chocolate, and suddenly you are told to imagine a chocolate river in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And it just is delightful. Or a house in Hansel and Gretel that you can eat. So as a toddler, you've suddenly seen this house, and now you're imagining food and house and being able to an edible one. So I think that's why you see a lot more food in picture books, and then
Right.
slowly it becomes part of the narrative, but not central to the narrative as children grow older.
Okay, okay, okay. So, I mean, do you find the children's books tend to be either more fiction or non-fiction oriented, or are they kind of really a balance between the two?
So I think when it comes to food, there's a fair bit of nonfiction. Again,
Okay,
oh God, again, I'm guilty. So I have this middle grade book which has a whole section on food, but it's mostly
okay,
food security, food habits, food waste, things like that. Then there's this other book. Where did it go? Here. Something to Chew On, which is published by Kalpvriksh and has been illustrated by Rohan Chakravarti and
okay,
written by Sujata Padmanabhan and a bunch of others. And this gets into food, thirst, texture, um, as well as diversity, food security, fitness, everything. So it's like a literal handbook to food in that sense.
okay, okay.
Then you have something like what Natasha and Shreya have done. This mad book called The Good Indian Child's Guide to Eating Mangoes.
Okay.
So it's literally got a guide to how do you eat a mango.
Hmm, hmm.
And just a second. Yeah. A mango is at its best when it's ripe, firm, and cold. So you're getting instructions. Here's how you eat a mango. If you ever confused, there's a book for that. So there's a so there's a lot of non-fiction out there. There is some fiction. One of my favorites, which I'm going to talk about, is Meera Ganpati and Renuka Rajiv's Uma versus Upma. And
Okay, that's a lovely title.
it's also a really fun book. It's about Uma who loves playing with her breakfast. And
Right.
so dosa becomes a hanky. She wears rings with the vadas. And then finally she discovers, spoiler alert, is that, she discovers upma and she finds it to be this delightful thing. And it's
Okay.
fully a mad story, but it's great. It's a great story about picky eaters if you were to start peeling its layers. But if you don't, it's a really fun story.
Okay, okay. Actually, one of the books that I think you sent me, and I'm not sure, was a fabulous book really on the history of the chili. I know it was written by this really scholarly gentleman. Yeah, I thought that was a fabulous book. I know it's non-fiction, but the amount of detailing and the amount of research that went into it, and it's a children's book. I mean, I thought adults could actually have kind of benefited from it.
Yeah, it has stuff like history, and it goes into different empires. It's quite comprehensive if you want to know about the chili. And so it's written by Nayan Chanda and illustrated again by Priya Kurian.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
You talked about sustainability and you talked about the environment and all of these things. These are very heavy, complex topics. How do you adapt that to children? I mean, how do you make them understand that? Do you simplify it, or what do you do?
Maurice Sendak, the really, really famous children's author, children's books creator, once said something very famously. He said, "I don't write for children, I write." And in some ways, you have to, we, as authors and illustrators, I think that responsibility is very heavy, that you're writing for an audience that's actually really smart. They still may be beginning to read, or their literacy levels may not be the same across demographics and things like that. But for them, it's most important to not dumb it down. Because the moment you try to talk down to a child, they know. It's literally like you meet a 10-year-old and you'll be like, you talk in lisping language and you ask them how their school is going. He's just going to be like, "I don't want to talk to you." So you've got to learn to speak their language. You have to realize that children are naturally curious. They love getting repulsed. They love getting scared. So these are all elements that you have in food. You have scary foods, you have bitter foods, all of that. So you can bring all of that together to actually make a very interesting narrative. With complexities like climate and food wastage, often I realize that illustrations really help, because children are also very visual, so they're able to make the correlation between the text and the illustration. So like I had one little chapter on food miles, and I think Shayan Mukherjee, who illustrated this book, showed some tired looking food to go with it. So, so he just put this,
Okay.
One of the best things I realized to do is also, if you're talking about actions and behavior change, especially for children, is to lead by example. So, and I constantly find that children say, we like inspiring stories, and which is why you see so many biographies out there in the market for children. So one of the things to be able to tell them positive stuff in this very, very doom gloom scenario, where you tell them there's going to be no chocolate in the future, there's going to be no mangoes in the future. Why do they want to grow up? I mean, So you have to also bundle it up with some hope, with some positivity, and show them that yes, there are problems, but here are people who are doing some great work.
Okay, okay. I'm just going to take a couple of questions from Padmini, who kind of asks, all the books that you've mentioned, they're all published by Pratham, or are you been talking about different? No, they're all different books. Yeah.
They're all different books. Some of my favorite books are from Tulika Books as well.
Okay.
They've got this really mad story called A Silly Story of Bondapalli, which is
Okay.
about a fussy prince, and it's been adapted into a play by Shaili Satyu of Gillo's, the Bombay-based Gillo guys. So some of them were that. This is by HarperCollins. This is Talking Cup. So Culphrix, different publishers.
Different publishers. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things that came up in one of the previous conversations, I think when we were reading out food points, is that a lot of food songs and a lot of food stories are sung to children when they're eating, or they're meant to kind of get them to eat food. Is that tradition either documented, or does that kind of style of writing continue into publishing?
Lesser, more and more.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that we need to reverse. And I know Tulika Books has an excellent board book series, which has some of our older nursery rhymes, Hindi ones, the very Indian ones, and they have re-illustrated them for board books for toddlers.
Right.
I think what's fascinating, and Shaili Satyu again has a play for toddlers which has one of these oral traditions in it. It's a wordless play. So I think what's happened is that with so many distractions when it comes to eating, children are plonked in front of screens instead of saying, look, aeroplane is coming and chidiya is coming. It has changed the narrative when it comes to books as well. But I do think that there are projects that document many of these, I'm sure. And I think we should do more of those. I mean, now that you reminded me, I'm going to go back to trolling the internet trolling writers for this.
Okay, okay. And I'm sure that there'll be a variety that you'll find. There'll be a lot of, smaller communities, a lot of kind of indigenous kind of stories that will probably not have made it to the mainstream, or definitely not internationally, but which many of us ourselves will not have heard from other communities.
In fact, I think that's a challenge across publishing and also in children's publishing, is that we're constantly seeing the mainstream narrative that's being published widely. And I think it's slowly changing with the Own Voices movement that started. There's a hashtag diverse books, which looks at promoting voices that are writing their own stories, illustrating their own stories. And so we've been also trying to do the same thing. So a few years ago, one of our colleagues, he was interning with us, and he discovered at that point that when it comes to the Northeast, for instance, the picture book landscape is mostly focused on folk tales. And we were like, no, we've got to rethink this completely. So we've started looking at more contemporary stories that are set in the Northeast. For instance, there's, so I work with Pratham Books, which has this open source free digital platform. It's called Storyweaver. And all our books are there to read, translate, download in multiple languages. And if you go on that, you'll see a diversity of voices that try and tell these stories a lot more.
Okay. Okay. So are you saying then that, the online or the digital platforms you're able to do a lot more with them than with print, and it's opening access to different areas?
Yeah, I think it was most visible, Antoine, when the lockdown started and suddenly children did not have access to books. And we had, of course, we had much more traffic on Storyweaver, but I know schools use Storyweaver very, very actively, especially in this period, to share stories, to even share lesson plans with them. Unfortunately, sorry, children, cannot help it. But what to me is fascinating is also that it's meant that having an open source platform that's international. And we just turned 5, so Storyweaver just turned 5 yesterday on International Literacy Day. So it's meant that we
Wow.
have publishers from across the world. We've got publishers from Africa, for instance, from different countries there. And a lot of them are publishing their own stories. And a lot of other community members, so teachers and translators from different parts of the world, take our stories and they translate them into their language to share it with their students. And to
Right.
me, I think that's fascinating because, we grew up reading about cherry cake and ginger beer and scones and all of that and clotted
Yeah.
cream. And now I think it's amazing that children get to read about upma and idli and what goes into our tiffins. So I,
Yeah.
I find this cross-cultural sharing of stories really cool.
Okay. And you can access their cultures as well. I mean, you can access food stories from different parts of the
Yes,
world as well.
yes.
Okay. Okay. So you're getting a lot of love from Lalita Suhasini.
Hi,
So
Lalita. High five.
yeah, Padmini was asking another question about JV Oliver's son. Okay. Do you think there should be more non-fiction books for kids, giving details of nutrition concepts, eating healthy, how sugar is poison, for example? I personally don't think so. I think kids should learn to eat everything, and really nothing is poison for them at that age. I mean, that's my feeling. They should learn about everything about food rather than coming up with kind of ideas that I think might kind of actually impede them later in life.
You answered that question yourself. So
Okay.
I do think that there's a space for nonfiction that's really, really amazing because it gives us the chance to tell stories that we may not always get to tell. I
Hmm.
visited the seed bank in Odisha a few years ago. I was working with Fairtrade, and I got to
Hmm.
meet these wonderful women who are seed guardians. And they are saving their local cotton seeds against all odds. And nonfiction enables me to tell their story, for instance, or share their story rather. It also enables me it enables authors to be able to report, to explain certain concepts better.
Yeah.
But I think with food, there's so much of magic. Like food is so much more than nutrition only, right? Like it is
Yeah.
about that. But food is about camaraderie. It's about comfort. It's about family. It's about friends. And I think that fiction does a beautiful job of uh, talking about that. In my middle grade book, A Cloud Called Bhura, there's a point when one of the characters really low, and he's a terrible cook, but he always wants to cook. He's 12 years old, and so he burns something, and that becomes like this last straw for him, and he's like, nothing's going right. And that's happened to all of
Right.
us, right? Where I
Yeah.
burn a cake and I want to smash it to smithereens because I'm so upset about it. So I feel like fiction gives you that space to navigate emotions that are connected with food.
That's a really interesting point, and I think when I grew up, at least, and probably it's about the same time that you did, I think that whole thing was we inhabited Enid Blyton's universe of food, and I think we that was the only world that we knew. Um, I didn't really know anything about Indian food or anything, so it's really nice to see so many new books coming out, and there obviously seems to be a lot more than what I had imagined.
Yes. And what's amazing is how much there's been food play also. So Asha Nemaya has this book series, which is called has a book called The Mystery of the Silk Umbrella. And
Okay.
the characters always cooking, but they're cooking very, very interesting stuff like chicky French toast and traffic light dosas. And then
Okay.
there's Taranauts by Rupa Pai, which has this fictional sci-fi kind of food. But when you read it, you kind of feel like, I know what it is. Like it must be like Golgappas. So,
Okay.
and everyone's like constantly like there's another book by Ranjit Lal. It's published by Duckbill. It's called The Deathly Royal Recipe. Huh. And
Wow.
in which there is like a royal cookbook and someone's trying to steal it and all of that. And more recently, Jerry's really wonderful hook book, Jerry Pinto's,
Jerry
which
has
is
written a
set in
cookbook.
hook book, not a cookbook.
Sorry, what? A
So,
hook book.
yes. Um,
Okay.
So hook books are these bridge books that have been published by Duckbill, which is a publishing house, which is now part of
Right.
Penguin Random House, and they are like this bridge between picture books and chapter books. So they're like books for slightly fluent readers. And
Okay.
there's this book that Jerry's written. It's set in Moira, and it's about where Moira's banana is gone, and it's about nostalgia. And at one point, it's the child's birthday, and they make a dodol cake. So they splash around in rivers and fish there, and take fruits from the trees. So it's this wonderful book about food, but it's also about the child's parents' relationship with his village. And it's called My Daddy and the Well. Sorry, I'd forgotten the title. And I just think
Okay.
it's such an amazing story to be able to share about food traditions with children.
Right, right. And do you see this as a category growing in India? Do you see that more people getting interested in writing on the subject for children?
I definitely think so, especially picture books, like I said, are flooded with food metaphors, food books. I think with the older books, like where did Camp Sweets go? Now I've lost track of things on my desk. So with it is quite. I've got around 50 books here, I think, on food. So
Wow.
I will not show everyone the mess I've created with this, but I definitely think it is a growing category. And for older children, it may not be the main story, but I think
Right.
it's becoming an integral part of how authors choose to tell the story. So a lot of it will situate around going and grabbing a bite or sitting for a meal and things like that. Or even like this book, written by Aditi Rao and illustrated by this immensely talented illustrator called Krishna Bala Shenoy. It's called Chuchu
Okay.
Mantu's Jar of Toffees. And the toffees become a metaphor for kindness in the face of loss.
Oh,
So, yeah, and it's for very young children, as you can see, it's a picture book. So I think
right,
what we
right.
are seeing is more the deepening of the relationship of food and the character and the stories in children's books.
Okay. Now, one of the things I also noticed, at least from the books that you've helped out and some of the other ones, the illustrations actually are really, they're really beautiful, actually, and very well thought out. And there's a lovely synergy between the text and the illustrations. So it's clearly that we've got a lot of good illustrators as well.
Oh, I think that's something really amazing. We have some amazing art colleges in India which has really fostered this industry in that sense. And a lot of talented illustrators spend their time doing children's books. It's in some ways, it's a mystery because children's books don't pay very well. So,
Yeah, exactly.
but we're still grateful for them because it comes out of sheer passion, I think, where they get the space to think of so much. Like, for instance, there's this point in Chuchu Mantu where Krishna has drawn this space, and she's lost her uncle, and she's gone back to his room after a while, and she's
Right.
looking for his kindness, and she doesn't know where
Okay.
it is. But it's also that sense of when you're in a space where a person who you've lost used to live, try to find them in their belongings. And so they also add these layers to a story, which are just the illustrators. So sometimes you just have a separate story going on. Like in Uma versus Upma, there is this cat who is just the second character in this book. And I've forgotten the cat's name, I'll tell you. It's Maligai the cat. And she's just everywhere and looking really upset about the fact that she's not getting food anymore here. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that's wonderful that the kind of layers that illustration can weave into these stories. Anything else that you wanted to add on, Abij, about books and about what's available and what can be done with them?
Sure. I'm going to show you two of my favorite books, which are international,
Okay.
since we've been talking a lot about Indian books. This is about lunchbox and where does the food that's in your lunchbox come from. And
Okay.
so you first see the lunchbox, and then how did the bread get made? How did the cheese in your sandwich come? And you can see
Okay.
there's like proper factory farming being shown. So there's no whitewashing here. And this is this other really lovely book called How We Make Stuff. And it's got this wonderful spread.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
And it's on where do chocolates come from. I'm trying very hard to do this. I can open little windows and see what's happening
Oh,
inside.
lovely.
I can read a letter from Fairtrade.
Oh,
And yeah, I can open a cocoa bean to see what's inside, cacao bean to see what's inside it. So what I think is that children's books offer this window into food in a very, very different way. Some of these books I wish we had when we were growing up, because
yeah.
I feel it would have changed the way I looked at food much, much earlier. I mean, I grew up there's so much of appreciation we need around the food ecosystem, from the farmer to where our food comes from, to simply, like I said, what food represents. And I think that's what I love about how children's books are able to do that.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point that you've raised. And, I think we never really thought about food as children, or were never really introduced to it. Not directly. I mean, really, everything that I got about food came from Enid Blyton, or learning alphabets, honestly speaking. And it's only later on in life that when I became a food writer, or with other things, that I actually started engaging with food. But this is a nice way, a very neutral way to kind of engage with, to kind of educate and let them figure out what kind of values they want to develop around food.
Absolutely that. And what's amazing is, Antoine, when I go and do sessions with Nima, the children just have a blast, because we talk about what foods they like, we talk about colors, we talk about seasons. And by the end of it, they're busy drawing fruit baskets, or they're drawing Nima with her mad hair. And then all the parents will come to me and say, but she does not eat so-and-so, and I'm so-and-so food. And I'm just like, okay. So, so yeah, and the children don't question, they just enjoy the story.
Right.
But that said, I have friends who go on.
Yeah. No, go on. You have friends.
Okay, I have friends who've said that their children try new foods because they are told that, but Nima likes it, and they'll be like, okay, I'll try.
Well, I mean, whatever gets children to, I know that is a huge challenge for parents. But Abij, thank you so much for doing this. I mean, you've introduced me to a whole new world of children's books. I wasn't aware that there were so many books, on the subject, and so many published in India, which such fun concepts, really. I think if anyone has children or nieces or whatever it is, I think this is a great place for them to go out to bookstores and kind of check this out. And the Story Weaver, right? Is
Yes.
the platform. So where can people find Story Weaver?
So it's storyweaver.org.in.
Okay.
And
Oh,
you can just Google Pratham Book Story Weaver. It will pop up. Yeah.
and these are free, or are some of them charged?
No, they're all free to read, download, translate. You can share them. You can print them, bind them, and read them at home.
Oh, wow,
It's
that's really
yours
cool.
to explore.
Oh, okay, great. So that's another platform for everyone to kind of do their own thing and figure out what they wanted, how they want to educate their children on food. So thank you so much, Beach, for being a part of this and for telling us about food. And I hope you're able to clean up the mess with all the books around you.
I think the biggest task was finding where they were before this. But thank you, Antoine. This was so much fun.
Not at all. My pleasure. Yes, Alan's put up the
Thank you,
link,
Alan.
but yeah, and Alan, actually, if you can put up the link on the IGTV once that goes up, because that'll be permanent. People may not see it over here once the video is saved. So that'll be quite helpful for everyone. But thank you, everyone, for joining us and listening in. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I definitely learned quite a bit. And in the meantime, till I see you next week, have a great weekend and stay safe and stay well. Take care, guys.